Today we're going to be making a vanity out of this oak barrel. We had two barrels here that we had bought to basically do this with, and this one over here seems a little bit taller, and as you can see it's got a lot taller of a rim. My wife did not like that. She wanted to use this barrel, who has a lot shorter rim around the top of the barrel. Now this whole barrel was really dark, looks really bad actually, like it is right there at the bottom. And my wife has sanded, as you can see where it's lighter, up. She's already sanded that portion up and kind of got that cleaned up. And you can see it's got a little name on the top of it of some vineyard, and then it got a little bit of other stamping down here that it's a French oak profile barrel. We'll try to maybe keep some of that engraving when we make the barrel into a vanity. So the plan is we have a copper sink actually. So the first thing we're probably going to do is we're going to mark it, and we're going to cut out the oval for the copper sink, and we're going to make sure that we can make the top strong and not fall apart, you know, to hold the sink. And then that'll give us access into the barrel. Then we are going to mark out a door, and we're going to make us a hinge door on this barrel so that we can access the drain. And we will probably actually go from about that third band down to about the third band from the bottom, and we will have to cut through these two middle bands, and we're going to incorporate those into our door to help hold the door in the correct shape. So that'll be a neat little process. Hopefully everything will work out good. So we'll attach these bands with screws to the wood so everything stays in place, and then we will cut out our door. So looking inside of this is a wine barrel. I was expecting it to be pretty much empty. It is red on the inside from the wine, but they've got some straps on each side with extra pieces of oak, probably for added flavoring, or some type of wood that they have in here, probably to help flavor the wine. So I was expecting it to be empty, but looks like there's just some screws in those straps, so I'm just going to go ahead and unscrew those and take these out. So we put all these screws in here before we start sawing, because we want to hold these, when we cut these bands in half, we're going to cut these bands, and we want some bands to stay to the door, we want the other bands to stay on the barrel and not flip off. And then the other ones are just to help hold, if any of these wooden pieces would want to shift on the top and bottom, I'm just putting those in there just in case, but I'm pretty sure that they won't, just because of the way the lids are made. Since the barrel is curved, I'm kind of sawing one way along the edge and then working my way this way, and I'm being able to keep along this the band and keep a nice tight cut. That actually worked out better than I thought. There's our door. So we got one piece here on this side that came off that didn't have a screw in it. We're just going to take it and glue that back on here, and then we'll have us a nice door. The barrel's all sanded, got the dust all blown off of it, and now we've got some painter's tape applied to the bands of the barrel, and we're going to be applying a wood stain, and we are using a Minwax wood stain that is called Early American. It is the same wood stain that we're using on the doors here in our house and some other trim that we're doing. So the stain is dried for 12 hours now. We're going to leave this tape on here, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to polyurethane the sides and polyurethane the lip around the top of it. I've kind of changed my mind on the top, what I want to do to the top. I wasn't for sure. I want something to resist water, you know, that might get splashed on it. And the top's a little uneven. The sink wants to rock a little bit. It's a little high in the middle. So I'm thinking poured epoxy on the top, about 1/4 inch thick, to help level the top out and give a nice durable surface that'll be better to protect against water than the polyurethane. So that's my plan right now. We'll go ahead and get started putting the polyurethane on. Well, it's a few days later. We got all our coats of polyurethane on the wood. We have now switched our painter's tape around to expose the bands, and this is when we would paint the bands black, but we have now changed our mind and we want to leave them silver because I think it'll go with the room better. You'll see that in a later video, but what we've done is we've pretty much sanded all the galvanizing off of these bands. So we're going to just apply some clear coat to this, and to help protect the bands from rusting is basically all we're going to do. So basically at this step we could either paint it black, but we're going to go ahead and just paint a clear coat on there instead. The clear coat is now on the metal bands, and we have the painter's tape taken off. The barrel's looking pretty good so far, so we're going to go ahead and do our tabletop epoxy, and we're going to be doing a pour epoxy on the top of the barrel to make a nice flat surface, durable surface for the vanity. So to keep the epoxy from pouring into the barrel, we've just put a wrap of Gorilla Tape around the holes in the barrel to give it a nice lip so that the epoxy will stay contained on top of the wood. And we're shooting to go about an 1/8 inch thickness of epoxy on the top of this. So we're going to go ahead and mix everything up and start pouring the epoxy. It's the next morning now, and the epoxy that is on the top of the barrel, it is cured. We did end up with some air bubbles in the epoxy. You can see them back in the back there. There's some air bubbles on the surface, but overall it turned out pretty good. We did have trouble with it not curing fast. I mean, it seemed like the air bubbles just kept coming for a couple hours, and then finally we just kind of gave up and went to bed. And then we had problems with the epoxy wanting to drip out and get past the duct tape, so we ended up putting about 3 or 4 layers of duct tape around to help stiffen that up, and then we put duct tape up from underneath to help try to contain that a little bit better, and then that seemed to work. But I don't think duct tape ended up being the right choice. When it's all done and said, I don't know if if it was a good choice to cut the hole first. We could have epoxied the top and then cut the hole, but if we did that, then we'd be worried about scratching up the epoxy on top. So I really don't know what the right answer is here, but we got through it. So now we need to go ahead. We'll go ahead and take this duct tape off, and we'll see how thick we actually poured it. I was shooting for about 1/8 of an inch, but I'm afraid I'm going to be closer to 1/4 of an inch. So we'll go ahead and pull the duct tape off and see how thick the epoxy actually is. Yeah, so the epoxy ends up being about 1/4 of an inch thick. It's pretty thick stuff. So there's a few spots where the duct tape bowed back from the weight of the epoxy, and the epoxy is actually over the top of the opening of where the sink goes. So we're going to try, this hasn't 100% cured yet. It takes about 3 days. It's still a little bit pliable. So we're going to go ahead and take a razor blade, and we're going to see if we can cut off this excess epoxy around the sink area. I'm going to show you this. This is the copper sink that we bought, and it came basically just like this. And if you look at the back, it came with no instructions. If you look at the back there, it's just smooth around the back. There's nowhere to clip this sink down or tighten this sink down. So the only thing I can come up with is to silicone it in place and to hold that onto the vanity. So we're going to fill this back area full of silicone caulking, and I'll put enough in it that it'll actually kind of go around this edge and help, hopefully that'll help glue it on there. And then I'll just hold the drain hole and align it and put it down. And what we also did is we put some tape down here to help us get this orientated exactly the way we want it. And then we'll let this sit for a couple days and dry real good before we go ahead and put the drain in there. I haven't pressed it down. I'm just trying to make sure I'm aligned basically where I want to be at. It looks pretty good. I'll go ahead and press this down. Oh, this may be very messy. All right, I'm just going to take and wipe off all the silicone around the edge. There, and that's a different faucet from the beginning of the video. My wife put that faucet on a different place, and she bought this faucet for the barrel. So the barrel is complete now. To finish the door out, we ended up put a piece of board in here with a cabinet catch on there, so then it keeps the door shut. So that's nice and worked out pretty good. I've contemplated going ahead and putting these screws all the way around these 4 bands just for consistency. I may still end up doing that. I haven't decided yet. One problem we have ran into is the drain. Finding a drain for a non-overflow sink and finding one that looks right in this sink, because this sink is only like 14 gauge, 16 gauge copper, so it's pretty thin metal. And finding a drain that fits in here and doesn't stick way up in the bottom of the sink is becoming a little bit difficult, so we're still on the search for a drain for the sink. So we're basically to the point of installing this barrel vanity. So I've got the back of it cut out now, and I'm going to turn this around and I'm going to show you what the back looks like. So on the back of the vanity, we basically positioned it exactly where we were going to put this vanity, and then we've cut out some holes accordingly to how the drain line and the water lines come out of the wall. That way we can push this barrel all the way against the wall as close as we can. That way we're trying to hide the drain and the water lines with the barrel itself. So we marked everything out, and then we went ahead and we drilled these holes with hole saws, and it's basically to the point of being ready to be installed. One other thing that we did to the barrel was we didn't want this scratching the floor up, so we put a couple boards on the bottom of it. They were just thick enough to basically raise the barrel up about 1/16 of an inch from the floor. And then we went ahead and we put that adhesive felt that you put on the bottom of furniture, and we put that on there as well. And now that barrel can slide around the floor and you don't have to worry about these metal bands scratching the floor up. So that was kind of a little final touch to make sure that we don't damage anything with the barrel itself. This has been definitely an interesting project. It actually went way better than I thought it was going to be. So pretty happy the way it turned out. We're installing this in our half bath, and I'll have a video later on the half bathroom, and you'll be able to see it installed there. Thanks for watching.